In the most remote corners of Siberia, where humans venture only once a decade, lies a secret that could revolutionize our understanding of human evolution. The Siberian snowman is not just a legend, but a reality that the authorities have been hiding for more than half a century. Today, we will reveal new evidence from hunters and geologists, declassified documents from the Soviet secret services, and scientific data that prove the existence of our closest relatives in the Siberian taiga. Get ready to learn the truth that has been hidden from you. The authorities continue to hide the truth about the Siberian snowman from us, but we will reveal all the new facts and evidence. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on sensational material about the mysteries of our planet. What do you think? Could archaic hominids really have survived in Siberian conditions? Or is it all a hoax? Share your opinion in the comments. In the depths of the Siberian taiga, where trees remember the days when mammoths roamed the earth, there are stories that have been passed down from generation to generation for more than 3 centuries. The indigenous peoples of Siberia, the Evenks, Nenets, and Yakuts, have long known about the existence of mysterious forest dwellers, whom they called by various names: Chuchuna, Almasty, and forest people. According to legend, these creatures had a human appearance, but surpassed humans in height and physical strength. The first written references to encounters with unknown humanoids in Siberia date back to the 17th century. Russian explorers who were developing the vast expanses beyond the Urals recorded strange incidents in their reports. The documents of the Siberian Order contain evidence from Cossacks about wild people living in the most remote areas of the taiga. For a long time, these records were considered fabrications or descriptions of encounters with representatives of unknown tribes. Of particular interest are the records of Semyon Desnev's expedition in 1647, which mention beast-like people of extraordinary strength encountered in the Chukotka region. Desnev described creatures over 2 meters tall, covered with thick fur, moving on 2 legs and making sounds similar to human speech. But why did these testimonies not receive the attention they deserved from historians? The answer lies in the politics of the time. The Russian Empire was interested in developing Siberia and extracting its riches. Stories about mysterious creatures could scare off settlers and hinder colonization. Therefore, many documents were classified or destroyed. Only in the archives of the Irkutsk and Tomsk provinces are there fragmentary references to forest savages. In the 18th century, during Vitus Bering's Great Northern Expedition, naturalist Georg Steller recorded several cases of strange footprints being found in Kamchatka. The footprints were human in shape, but their size exceeded the usual by 1.5 to 2 times. Steller suggested the existence of an unknown species of primates adapted to the harsh Siberian conditions. The 19th century brought a new wave of evidence. Gold miners working in the Yenisei and Lena river basins regularly reported encounters with wild people. A particularly large number of such reports came from Yakutia and the Krasnoyarsk territory. Local authorities were forced to set up special commissions to investigate these cases. What did the Tsarist officials discover during their investigations? Most of the commission's reports remain classified, but the surviving fragments indicate the systematic nature of the phenomenon. The documents mention creatures of unknown nature, traces of intelligent beings, and the need for further study. By the end of the 19th century, foreign researchers also took an interest in the Siberian snowman. In correspondence with his Russian colleagues, the English naturalist Charles Darwin expressed interest in studying Siberian hominids. He suggested that representatives of ancient human species could have survived in remote areas of Siberia. Of particular interest are the records of ethnographer Nikolai Mikluko-Maklai, who made an expedition to Yakutia in 1878. His diaries contain detailed descriptions of encounters with local residents who told him about the Chuchun. Mikluko-Maklai noted the striking similarity in the descriptions of these creatures given by representatives of different peoples living hundreds of kilometers apart. The revolution of 1917 interrupted many studies, but did not stop the flow of evidence. Moreover, in the conditions of civil war and chaos, many people were forced to hide in the taiga, where they encountered the mysterious inhabitants of the forest. It was then that the theory began to form that the authorities were deliberately hiding the truth about the snowman. The Krasnoyarsk territory, covering more than 2 million square kilometers of Siberian territory, has become a real center for modern snowman sightings. Local hunters, who spend most of their lives in the taiga, have accumulated unique experience of encounters with mysterious creatures. Their testimonies, collected over the past 30 years, form the most complete picture of the current state of the Siberian snowman population. Alexei Voronin, a hereditary hunter from the village of Tura, recounts the events of 1992. While hunting sable in the lower Tunguska region, he stumbled upon a strange structure, a kind of hut made of thick fir branches. The structure was over 3 meters high, and the diameter of the base was about 5 meters. No human would build such a dwelling in the middle of the taiga, Voronin asserts. Near the structure, he found barefoot footprints measuring more than size 45. What made the experienced hunter believe in the existence of the snowman? The answer came a week later. Returning along the same route, Voronin saw a creature standing near a stream 200 meters away from him. It was at least 2.5 meters tall, with broad shoulders, long arms, and its entire body covered with dark brown fur, the hunter describes. The creature noticed the observer and disappeared into the thicket with surprising speed for its size. Vladimir Kozhevnikov, who worked as a gamekeeper in the Puturansky Nature Reserve, recorded anomalous activity in 1997. During 2 weeks in October, he regularly found the remains of large animals, deer and bears, torn apart by an unknown predator. The nature of the damage did not correspond to any known Siberian predator. The bones were broken with bare hands, not teeth or claws, Kozhevnikov notes. In 2003, a group of hunters from Norilsk, led by Igor Semenov, recorded a series of strange sounds in the area of Lake Lama. These were not animal sounds, but something between a howl and human speech, Semenov describes. The sounds continued for 3 nights in a row, coming from the same place in the taiga. When they tried to get closer, the sounds stopped, and the tracks led to a rocky area where they disappeared. Why did the Krasnoyarsk territory become the center of observations? The answer lies in the region's unique natural conditions: vast, sparsely populated territories, a rich food supply, and a variety of landscapes from tundra to taiga create ideal conditions for the existence of large unknown species. In addition, it is here that the largest military facilities and classified territories are located, which may explain the official silence on the issue. Sergei Danilov, a hunter with 40 years of experience, testifies to systematic observations in the Yenisei Ridge area. From 1980 to 2010, he recorded 27 cases of traces of unknown creatures. The tracks appeared in the same places, usually near water bodies or berry glades, says Danilov. He compiled detailed maps of the area with the locations of the finds marked. Of particular interest is the testimony of Nikolai Petrov, a surveyor who worked on an expedition to map remote areas of the region. In 2008, his group discovered a whole system of trails laid by unknown creatures in the upper reaches of the Podkamenaya Tunguska River. The trails were about a meter wide and several dozen kilometers long, connecting water bodies and areas with rich vegetation. The trails were laid out taking into account the terrain, as if they had been created by an intelligent species, Petrov notes. Large barefoot footprints were regularly found on the trails, as well as viewing platforms, cleared areas on high ground, offering views of large areas. But why does the scientific community ignore this abundant evidence? The answer may lie in politics and economic interests. The Krasnoyarsk region is rich in minerals and home to strategically important facilities. Recognizing the existence of an unknown species could seriously hamper industrial activity and require the creation of specially protected areas. Mikhail Sokolov, head of the Siberia hunting farm, has collected more than 100 pieces of evidence from hunters and gamekeepers over the course of 20 years. The picture is too consistent to be a fabrication, he says. His archive contains photographs of tracks, casts, wool samples, and even video recordings made by hunters on their mobile phones. The last few years have brought particularly interesting evidence. In 2020, hunter Alexander Gromov from Kansk reported direct contact with the creature near a hut in the taiga. It came up at night when I was sitting by the fire. It stood in the shadows and watched. When I tried to get closer, it made a sound like a warning and left, Gromov says. Geological expeditions in Siberia have always been a source of unexpected discoveries, but recent decades have brought findings that challenge our understanding of the region's fauna. Geologists spending months in remote areas of the taiga have become unwitting witnesses to the existence of creatures unknown to science. Their professional training and objectivity make these testimonies particularly valuable. In 1989, the Sibgeology expedition, led by Viktor Belozerov, a candidate of geological and mineralogical sciences, conducted exploration of deposits in the Enashimsky Ridge area. The expedition's field diary contains an entry from July 23rd. Traces of an unknown large animal were found near the base camp. The footprints of a two-legged creature, 42 centimeters long, indicate a weight of at least 200 kilograms. Belozorov, who had experience working in various climatic zones, claims that he had never seen such tracks before. In terms of morphology, the track resembles a human one, but its size and structural features indicate a fundamentally different species, the geologist notes. The group made plaster casts, which are still kept in the Institute's archives. What happened in that area that made cautious scientists believe in the unbelievable? Events unfolded rapidly. The next day, geologists discovered a ransacked food warehouse. The metal containers had been opened not with tools, but with bare hands, as evidenced by the characteristic fingerprints on the deformed metal. The size of the prints exceeded human ones by 1.5 times. Drilling master Ivan Korchagin recounts the events of the third night. We heard strange sounds near the drilling rig. We went out to check and saw the silhouette of a huge creature examining our equipment. When we turned on the spotlight, it disappeared into the forest at incredible speed. In the morning, numerous tracks and palm prints were found on the metal surfaces around the rig. In 2001, a geological team from the Krasnoyarsk Geologia Institute was working in the lower Tunguska River basin. The head of the party, Oleg Vasilyev, recorded a series of anomalous finds in the area of coal seams. "We found primitive tools, stones, processed in a primitive way for use as scrapers and axes," Vasilyev reports. Laboratory analysis of the finds showed that the stones had been processed using techniques unknown to the modern peoples of Siberia. The traces of work indicate the use of very great physical force and specific techniques, notes archaeologist Marina Stepanova, who studied the artifacts. Why were the results of these studies not widely publicized? The answer lies in the policies of scientific institutions and state secrecy. Many geological expeditions work in areas of strategic importance, and any information about anomalous phenomena is subject to secrecy. Of particular interest are the findings of the Polar Star expedition in 2007 in the Taimyr Peninsula area. A group led by geologist Andrei Morozov discovered a system of caves in which the remains of fires and primitive dwellings were found. Radiocarbon analysis showed that the finds were 300 to 400 years old. The dwellings were clearly designed for creatures much larger than humans, Morozov notes. The height of the cave entrances exceeded 2.5 meters, and the size of the sleeping areas indicated that the inhabitants were at least 3 meters tall. The bones of large animals with traces of cutting with primitive tools were found in the caves. Geophysicist Larisa Novikova from the Arctic Geo Expedition reports strange seismic anomalies recorded in the Putarana Plateau area in 2015. Rhythmic vibrations were recorded that were not characteristic of natural geological processes. The frequency and amplitude of the vibrations resembled seismograms of large animals moving, the specialist explains. In 2018, the Sibneftegaz drilling crew worked in the Vankor field area. Driller Pyotr Semenov recounts the nighttime incident. "I was on duty in the tower when I heard sounds similar to conversation. I went downstairs and saw 3 figures near our trailer. They were about 3 meters tall, moving on 2 legs, clearly discussing something among themselves. Is there a systematic attempt to conceal this information? An analysis of geological expedition reports reveals an interesting pattern. References to strange findings and encounters are either excluded from official reports or presented as unreliable information requiring further verification." Vladimir Petukov, Doctor of Geological Sciences, who has worked in Siberia for over 30 years, says, "Over the years, I have collected more than 50 similar testimonies from colleagues. They are all serious people, accustomed to accurate observations. It is unprofessional to ignore such a volume of data. Recent years have brought particularly interesting findings. In 2021, the Almazy Anabara expedition discovered fragments of wool from an unknown animal in the permafrost. Preliminary genetic analysis showed that the samples do not belong to any known species of mammal. The Republic of Sakha-Yakutia, covering more than 3 million square kilometers, is a unique laboratory for studying the phenomenon of the snowman. The local name for this creature, Chuchuna, comes from the Yakut language and means hidden in the taiga. Unlike sporadic sightings in other regions, encounters with unknown creatures in Yakutia are systematic, with hundreds of documented cases. The Institute for Humanitarian Research and Problems of Small Peoples of the north of the Siberian branch of the Russian Academy of Sciences has been maintaining a special file of reports on Chuchun since 1972. To date, The database contains more than 450 testimonies received from representatives of the indigenous peoples of Yakutia. Doctor of Historical Sciences Afanasy Fedorov, a leading specialist at the Institute in Folklore and Ethnography, notes a peculiarity of the Yakut accounts. Unlike mythological characters, descriptions of the Chuchun are strikingly uniform among different peoples living thousands of kilometers apart. This points to the reality of the observed phenomenon. What makes the Yakut observations particularly reliable? The indigenous peoples of the North have exceptional skills in observing nature, a well-developed memory, and a habit of making accurate descriptions. Their ability to distinguish animal tracks, their understanding of animal behavior, and their knowledge of the taiga make their testimonies extremely valuable to researchers. Semyon Nikolaev, a reindeer herder from the village of Gigansk, talks about systematic observations of Chuchuna in the Verkhoyansk range area. Since 1995, I have been finding tracks every winter in the same places, he says. Nikolaev has compiled a detailed map of the territory with marked points where traces have been found, which shows the clear routes of movement of these creatures. Observations in the Oymyakon Basin, one of the coldest places on Earth, are particularly interesting. Local resident Ivan Kristoforov claims that the Chuchun has adapted perfectly to extreme conditions. I saw tracks at a temperature of -50 degrees. The creature was moving barefoot through the snow and showed no signs of frostbite. Maria Dmitrieva, a candidate of biological sciences at Yakutsk State University, analyzed more than 200 testimonies collected over the past 20 years. Descriptions of the physical characteristics of the Chuchuna show remarkable consistency, the researcher notes. According to her data, the average height of the creatures is 2 meters 70 centimeters, and their weight is estimated at 200 to 250 kilograms. Why has Yakutia become the center of observations? Analysis of the geographical distribution of evidence shows a correlation with the presence of large forest areas, a rich food supply, and minimal population density. In addition, the traditional lifestyle of indigenous peoples involves constant residence in the taiga, which increases the likelihood of encounters. Igor Gotovtsev, a hunter-trapper from the village of Tomtor, recorded a series of encounters with a family group of Chuchuns in 2012. I observed an adult with 2 cubs near a berry thicket, he says. Gotovtsev notes signs of social behavior. The adult was teaching the young how to pick berries and use primitive tools. Hunting inspector Nikolai Pestryakov from the Ust-Yansky district has been keeping a detailed observation diary since 1997. His records contain descriptions of 23 direct encounters with Chuchuns and more than 100 findings of traces. The creatures show signs of intelligent behavior. They avoid humans, but are curious about our camps and equipment, Pestryakov notes. Of particular interest are the sound recordings made by Yakut researchers. Folklorist Praskovia Germogenova recorded more than 30 samples of Chuchuna vocalizations in various regions of the Republic. The sounds are unlike any known animal species, she says. Analysis of the recordings reveals a complex sound structure with signs of primitive speech. Is there an official position of the Yakutia authorities on the Chuchuna issue? Unlike the federal level, regional authorities are interested in the problem. In 2018, a working group was created under the Ministry of Ecology of the Republic to study reports of unknown animal species. The head of the group, Stepan Sleptsov, PhD in biology, reports, We do not deny the possibility of the existence of a large population of primates in Yakutia that is unknown to science. The data collected requires serious scientific study. The Yakut Cryptozoology Project, launched in 2019, attracted the attention of the international scientific community. A group of researchers from Russia, the United States, and Canada conducted a comprehensive expedition to the Suntar Kayata Ridge area, where the highest concentration of Chuchun sightings has been recorded. The results of the expedition were sensational. Samples of hair of unknown origin, traces of large primates, and video recordings of unidentified creatures were discovered. However, the publication of the results was blocked at the request of the federal authorities. What lies behind the official silence? Experts point to the strategic importance of Yakutia, which is home to the largest deposits of diamonds and rare metals. Recognition of the existence of an unknown species could complicate industrial activity and require the creation of protected areas, which would damage economic interests. Declassified archives of the KGB and the USSR Ministry of Defense contain documents that radically change the perception of how seriously the Soviet leadership took the problem of the snowman. Starting in the 1950s, the Soviet Union operated a whole network of secret scientific programs aimed at studying and searching for unknown humanoid creatures in remote areas of the country. Operation Relict, launched in 1957 on the personal orders of Nikita Khrushchev, became one of the most secretive programs in Soviet science. The official goal of the project was to study the possibility of the existence of relict hominids on the territory of the USSR in order to use their unique adaptive abilities in the interests of the country's defense doctor. Boris Porshnev, a specialist in human evolution and primatology, was appointed head of the program. He was given significant financial resources, access to classified materials, and the ability to conduct expeditions to any region of the USSR. What did the Soviet leadership know that made it invest huge amounts of money in the search for mythical creatures? The answer is contained in a declassified memo from Porshnev to KGB Chairman Alexander Shelepin, dated March 23, 1961. The accumulated materials convincingly testify to the existence of a population of unknown anthropoids on the territory of the USSR. Studying their biological characteristics could give the USSR significant advantages in the field of biological weapons and methods of survival in extreme conditions. The first major expedition of the Relict project was sent to the Pamir Mountains. In 1958, a group led by zoologist Alexander Mashkovtsev spent 6 months in the mountains of Tajikistan investigating reports from local residents about wild people. The results of the expedition remain classified to this day, but surviving fragments of reports indicate the discovery of material evidence of the existence of an unknown species of primates. Why did Siberia become the main focus of Soviet research? An analysis of declassified documents shows that by the early 1960s, the KGB had accumulated an extensive file of reports of encounters with unknown creatures in the Siberian regions. Particular attention was paid to areas adjacent to strategically important facilities, military bases, test sites, and industrial complexes. Igor Burtsev, Doctor of Biological Sciences, who worked on the program from 1964 to 1979, says, "We had access to materials collected by the military and border services over decades. The picture was so convincing that the leadership had no doubts about the reality of the phenomenon. A special GRU unit, Poisk 7, was created specifically to conduct field research as part of the Relict project. The unit was staffed by Special Forces officers with biological training and operated under the cover of geological expeditions. Over 20 years of work, the group carried out more than 80 operations in various regions of the USSR. Retired Colonel Viktor Komarov, who served in Search 7 from 1967 to 1983, reveals details of the secret operations. In 1972, our group established long-term surveillance of a family group of unknown primates in the Putaransky Plateau area. The observations were conducted using hidden cameras and audio recording equipment. What were the results of these many years of research? Declassified fragments of the final report of the Relict project from 1980 contain sensational conclusions. The existence of at least 3 populations of unknown anthropoids with a total number of 800 to 1,200 individuals has been established on the territory of the USSR. The most numerous population is concentrated in the regions of eastern Siberia. The report also points to the high level of adaptation of these creatures to harsh climatic conditions, and signs of primitive social organization and the use of simple tools. Soviet researchers were particularly interested in unique physiological features that allow them to survive in extremely low temperatures without the use of clothing or fire. Parallel to Relict, there was a program called Anomaly, supervised directly by the Politburo of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union. This program was aimed at studying all types of anomalous phenomena on the territory of the USSR, including UFOs, poltergeists, and cryptozoological phenomena. As part of Anomaly, several secret laboratories were created to analyze biological samples of unknown origin. Sergei Gerstein, a doctor of physical sciences who worked in one of these laboratories in Novosibirsk, reports, "We examined samples of hair, skin, and other biological materials collected by expeditions in Siberia. Genetic analysis showed that they belonged to an unknown species of primates, close to humans, but with a number of unique characteristics." Why were all these programs shut down in the mid-1980s? The official version states that it was inappropriate to continue funding research that did not yield practical results. However, experts point to political reasons. Mikhail Gorbachev, who came to power in 1985, set a course for openness and democratization. The existence of secret programs to study mythical creatures did not fit into the new policy. Most of the materials from the Relict and Anomaly programs remain classified to this day. According to experts, the archives of the Special Services contain more than 10,000 documents, photographs, and film materials related to Soviet research on the snowman. Their declassification could shed light on one of the most mysterious pages of domestic science. The 21st century has brought revolutionary changes in the methods of searching for and documenting the snowman. The development of digital technologies, the advent of compact high-resolution video equipment, and remote surveillance systems have allowed researchers to obtain video footage of a quality that surpasses anything that was previously available. Modern expeditions to Siberia are equipped with devices capable of capturing even the most elusive details of the behavior of these mysterious creatures. The international expedition Siberian Search, led by cryptozoologist Jeffrey Meldrum from Idaho State University, conducted a comprehensive study in the Krasnoyarsk region in 2019. The expedition was equipped with the most modern equipment, latest generation thermal imagers, night vision cameras, sound recording systems with directional microphones, and automatic camera traps with motion sensors. Over 6 weeks of work, we recorded 12 episodes of activity by unknown large bipedal creatures, Meldrum reports. The most impressive recording was made on July 27th in the area of Lake Vivi. An automatic camera captured a creature about 2 meters 70 centimeters tall, which spent 40 minutes examining equipment left behind by the expedition. What makes these modern recordings particularly convincing? Unlike the blurry footage of past decades, modern technology allows for detailed analysis of the gait, body proportions, and behavior of the creatures captured on camera. Biomechanical analysis conducted by specialists at Stanford University showed that the creature's movements do not correspond to any known animal species. The Russian expedition Altai Search, led by Doctor of Biological Sciences Anatoly Fomin, used an innovative approach, installing a network of 50 automatic cameras over an area of more than 1,000 square kilometers in the Altai Mountains. The system operated continuously for 8 months, recording all movement in the taiga. The results were sensational. We received more than 400 recordings with images of unknown primates, Fomin reports. Analysis of the material showed the existence of stable groups of 3 to 7 individuals with permanent routes of movement and feeding places. Of particular interest is a video recording made by a drone camera during the polar cryptozoology expedition in the Novosibirsk Islands region in 2021. The recording shows a group of 5 creatures moving across the tundra, demonstrating coordinated behavior and division of roles. The adults guard the young, and one of the adults acts as a scout. Why are these recordings not widely recognized in the scientific community? Experts point to the established system of scientific censorship. Major scientific journals refuse to publish articles on cryptozoological findings, citing insufficient evidence or non-compliance with scientific standards. Vladimir Sapunov, professor of anthropology at Moscow State University, who independently analyzed video footage from several expeditions, says, "From the point of view of morphology and biomechanics, the creatures recorded represent a species of higher primates unknown to science. Refusal to study this material contradicts the principles of the scientific method." The Taimyr 2022 expedition, led by Canadian zoologist Robert Mackenzie, used environmental DNA methods to search for traces of the snowman. The researchers collected samples of water, soil, and vegetation in areas where the creatures are believed to live, and then analyzed them for genetic material from unknown species. "We found DNA sequences that do not match any known species of mammals," Mackenzie reports. Genetic analysis showed the greatest similarity to human DNA, but with a number of unique mutations indicating long-term isolation of the population. In 2023, the Russian-American expedition Siberia, Alaska, conducted a comparative study of cryptozoological finds on both sides of the Bering Strait. The results showed a striking similarity between the Siberian findings and the materials collected in Alaska, indicating the existence of a single population of Arctic primates. Is there an international conspiracy of silence surrounding these discoveries? Analysis of publications and research funding reveals an interesting pattern. Expeditions that have obtained the most convincing evidence face sudden funding cuts or administrative obstacles to continuing their work. The documentary film Siberian Mystery, based on material from modern expeditions, was banned from screening in Russia for reasons of national security. Director Mark Anderson claims, We faced unprecedented pressure from government agencies. We were told directly that the topic of the snowman is closed for public discussion. Recent developments in artificial intelligence open up new possibilities for analyzing video footage. A computer vision system developed at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology is capable of detecting the smallest details of gait and movement that are invisible to the human eye. Analysis of modern video recordings using AI has shown that the creatures captured on film have unique biomechanics, combining human and ape features. This is not a person in a costume or a known animal, conclude MIT experts. Advances in remote sensing technology allow searches to be conducted using high-resolution satellite images. Analysis of satellite images shows anomalous heat signatures in remote areas of Siberia corresponding to groups of large primates. Physical evidence of the existence of the Siberian snowman has been accumulating for decades, forming an extensive database of material evidence that requires serious scientific analysis. Over the past 30 years, researchers have collected hundreds of hair samples, skin fragments, footprint casts, and other biological materials whose origin remains a mystery to modern science. The forensic laboratory at Lomonosov Moscow State University conducted a comprehensive analysis of more than 200 hair samples collected in various regions of Siberia. The head of the study, Dr. Elena Rogaeva, reports sensational results. Morphological analysis shows that the samples belong to an unknown species of primate. The structure of the hair does not correspond to that of humans or any known animal. Microscopic analysis revealed unique features in the structure of the hair shaft. The hair is 2 to 3 times thicker than human hair, and its internal structure shows adaptation to extremely low temperatures. The hair contains an increased amount of keratin and special air chambers that provide exceptional thermal insulation properties, explains Rogaeva. What did genetic analysis of the collected samples show? DNA studies conducted in several independent laboratories yielded contradictory but extremely interesting results. The laboratory of the Institute of Molecular Biology of the Russian Academy of Sciences, headed by academician Konstantin Skryabin, found sequences in the samples that were 70% identical to human DNA. The remaining 30% of the genetic material does not correspond to any known species, Skryabin notes. Phylogenetic analysis indicates that this branch separated from the common ancestor with humans about 500,000 years ago, which corresponds to the period of existence of Homo heidelbergensis. The researchers are particularly interested in the footprint casts collected in various regions of Siberia. Anthropological analysis of more than 300 casts conducted at the Institute of Archaeology and Ethnography of the Siberian branch of the Russian Academy of Sciences revealed consistent morphological features indicating that they belong to a single species. Sergei Vasilyev, Doctor of Anthropological Sciences, who led the research, notes, "The footprints demonstrate a unique combination of human and ape characteristics. The size of the foot varies from 40 to 48 centimeters, which corresponds to a height of 2 meters, 40 to 3 meters, 10 centimeters. Biomechanical analysis of the footprints reveals gait characteristics not found in modern humans or known primates. The stride length is 1.5 times longer than that of humans, and the angle of the foot indicates adaptation to movement over difficult terrain," explains biomechanics specialist Alexander Petrov from the Russian State University of Physical Education and Sport. Culture. Why are the results of these studies not officially recognized? An analysis of publication activity shows a systematic suppression of the results. Leading scientific journals refuse to publish articles on cryptozoological findings, despite the use of standard scientific methods and the reproduction of results. Harvard University professor David Reich, one of the leading experts on ancient DNA, independently analyzed several samples from Siberia. The genetic data strongly supports the existence of an unknown population of archaic hominids, he said in an interview that was later removed from all publications at the request of the university administration. Isotopic analysis of bone samples found in the Altai caves was conducted by a group led by Professor Michael Richards of the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology. The results showed a unique isotopic composition, indicating a diet consisting mainly of plant foods with occasional consumption of large animal meat. The isotopic ratios of carbon and nitrogen do not match any known primate or ancient hominid species, Richards reports. The analysis also revealed signs of seasonal migration, which explains the difficulties in studying these creatures. Dermatoglyphic analysis of palm prints found on various surfaces at the meeting places was conducted by forensic expert Vladimir Zvyagin from the Russian Center for Forensic Medical Examination. The papillary patterns show unique characteristics. The palm size is 1.5 to 2 times larger than that of a human, and the pattern of lines is not found in Homo sapiens, the specialist notes. What technologies allow for the most accurate analysis of footprints? Modern 3D scanning technology allows for the creation of detailed digital models of footprints with an accuracy of tenths of a millimeter. The Biomechanics Laboratory at St. Petersburg State University uses laser scanning to create accurate copies of footprints, which are then analyzed by computer programs. Spectral analysis of organic material samples found in the creature's presumed dwellings revealed the presence of specific biomarkers characteristic of large primates. Chromatographic analysis detected traces of unique pheromones not found in known animal species. X-ray structural analysis of bone fragments found in the Putaransky Plateau area was conducted by a group led by Anna Kozlova, Ph.D., from the Kurchatov Institute. The mineral composition of the bone tissue indicates exceptional density and strength, exceeding human indicators by 2 to 3 times, the researcher reports. Palynological analysis of soil samples from the habitats showed unusual changes in the composition of vegetation. Within a radius of 100 meters from the presumed layers, there is an increased concentration of certain plant species, which may indicate their deliberate cultivation, notes palynologist Tatiana Bolotova from the Institute of Botany of the Russian Academy of Sciences. Is there systematic falsification of evidence? Skeptics argue that most of the samples may be fakes or the result of contamination. However, independent analysis conducted in various laboratories around the world shows reproducibility of results, which rules out the possibility of mass falsification. A forensic examination of the traces for authenticity, conducted by FBI experts at the request of American researchers, confirmed the natural origin of the prints. The nature of the soil deformation, pressure distribution, and other physical parameters rule out the possibility of artificial creation of the traces, the American experts concluded. A comparative analysis of physical evidence from various regions of Siberia revealed a surprising uniformity of characteristics, indicating that they belong to a single species. Mathematical modeling shows that to explain the entire spectrum of findings, it is necessary to assume the existence of a population of between 500 and 1,000 individuals. Modern dating methods have made it possible to establish the age of some of the findings. Radiocarbon analysis of organic remains has shown that the activity of unknown creatures in Siberia has been recorded over the last 3,000 years, which rules out the hypothesis of a recent influx of the species into the region. The most convincing evidence of the existence of the Siberian snowman comes from representatives of the scientific community. Biologists, geologists, archaeologists, and other specialists whose professional training allows them to objectively evaluate the observed phenomena. These scientists risk their reputation and career by making statements about encounters with unknown creatures, which makes their evidence particularly valuable. Vladimir Denet, PhD in biology and a specialist in mammalian behavior from Moscow State University, has spent more than 20 field seasons in western Siberia studying the ecology of large predators. In 2014, during an expedition in the Khanty-Mansi Autonomous Okrug, he witnessed an event that radically changed his views on the region's fauna. I observed a group of 3 large bipedal creatures at a distance of about 200 meters, says Diné. Their behavior showed signs of high intelligence. They examined our traps for small mammals, clearly understanding their purpose. When I tried to approach them, they disappeared into the forest with astonishing speed and silence. Why do scientists risk their careers by talking about such encounters? The answer lies in scientific ethics and professional integrity. Many researchers believe that concealing observations contradicts the principles of the scientific method and hinders the objective study of nature. André Lapine, a candidate of geological sciences at the Institute of Geology and Mineralogy of the Siberian branch of the Russian Academy of Sciences, reports systematic observations in the Norilsk area since 1988. During 25 years of fieldwork in the Arctic, I have recorded 11 cases of direct encounters with unknown primates, the geologist claims. Lapin keeps a detailed observation diary with coordinates, weather conditions, and detailed descriptions of the creature's behavior. Of particular interest is the testimony of Svetlana Alexieva, Doctor of Archaeological Sciences at the Institute of Archaeology of the Russian Academy of Sciences. During excavations of a Paleolithic site in Altai in 2007, her team encountered inexplicable phenomena. Several times we found our tools rearranged in a certain order, as if someone had been studying them, Alexieva says. The situation became clear when the archaeologists installed hidden video surveillance. The night recording showed a large bipedal creature methodically examining our excavations and tools. Its behavior indicated a high level of cognitive ability, the researcher notes. Mikhail Chernyshev, professor of zoology at Tomsk State University, has been studying large mammals in Siberia for more than 30 years. In 2010, he organized a special expedition to search for the snowman in the Kuznetsk Alatau. Skepticism gave way to conviction after the discovery of a system of trails clearly created by intelligent beings, Chernyshev reports. The trails, stretching over 50 kilometers, connected water bodies, berry glades, and caves. The layout of the trails took into account the features of the terrain and demonstrated long-term planning of the territory, the zoologist notes. Primitive bridges over streams and cleared observation platforms were found on the trails. Is there pressure on scientists who report such observations? An analysis of the career trajectories of researchers shows an alarming pattern. Many experts who openly reported encounters with the snowman faced funding cuts, refusals to publish articles, and administrative obstacles. Igor Shpilinov, Doctor of Biological Sciences, renowned wildlife photographer and researcher, talks about the pressure he faced after publishing photos of the alleged snowman. "I was told directly that continuing with this topic would have a negative impact on my ability to obtain grants and participate in official expeditions," Elena Rychkova, Ph.D. in biology from the Institute of Animal Systematics and Ecology of the Siberian branch of the Russian Academy of Sciences, analyzed sound signals recorded in areas where the snowman is believed to live. Acoustic analysis revealed a complex vocalization structure with signs of primitive speech, the researcher reports. Spectrographic analysis revealed frequency characteristics not found in known primates. The sounds contain modulated tones and rhythmic patterns indicating a communicative function, Rychkova explains. A comparison with a database of animal voices yielded no matches. Anatoly Derevyanko, professor of anthropology at Novosibirsk State University and one of the leading experts in paleoanthropology, has expressed official support for research into the snowman. The discovery of the Denisovans has shown that our knowledge of ancient hominids is far from complete. The possibility of archaic forms surviving in remote areas of Siberia cannot be ruled out. Derevyanko points to parallels between descriptions of the snowman and reconstructions of the Denisovans' appearance. The morphological characteristics described by eyewitnesses correspond to our ideas about large Pleistocene hominids, the scientist notes. Is a scientific consensus forming regarding the existence of the snowman? A sociological survey conducted among Russian biologists and anthropologists showed that 37% of specialists admit the possibility of the existence of unknown large primates in Siberia. Among researchers with field experience in the region, this figure rises to 54%. The international conference Cryptozoology and Modern Science, held in Moscow in 2022, brought together more than 100 experts from 20 countries. The final declaration called for the creation of an international program to study relict hominids and an end to scientific discrimination against researchers working on this issue. Analysis of declassified documents and testimony from former government officials indicate the existence of a multi-level system of concealing information about the snowman, which has been in place for decades. This system includes control over scientific research, restrictions on access to certain territories, and active suppression of publications containing evidence of the existence of unknown humanoids. Retired Federal Security Service Colonel Alexander Petrovich Kolesnikov, who worked in state security structures for 32 years, reveals details of the secret program Anomaly Control. Since the 1970s, there has been a special unit dedicated to tracking and suppressing leaks of information about anomalous phenomena, including cryptozoological findings, Kolesnikov reports. According to him, the unit has a network of agents among scientists, journalists, and local historians, regularly receives reports on all sightings related to the snowman, and takes measures to discredit witnesses or classify materials. The task was clear: to prevent public interest in a topic that could destabilize the situation. The former officer explains. What mechanisms are used to conceal information? An analysis of the document flow between various departments reveals a well-established pattern of action. When reports of encounters with unknown creatures are received, a verification procedure is automatically initiated, during which witnesses are subjected to psychological pressure and materials are classified. Former Russian Ministry of Natural Resources employee Vladimir Sinitsyn talks about directives prohibiting the inclusion of information about cryptozoological findings in official reports. Any mention of unidentified large mammals had to be removed from documents before they were sent to higher authorities. The control system also extends to the media. Journalist Andrei Sklayarov, who specializes in covering anomalous phenomena, reports on direct bans on the publication of materials about the snowman. Editors received instructions from above that serious consideration of this topic was unacceptable. Only humorous notes discrediting witnesses were allowed. The authorities pay particular attention to controlling the areas where the largest number of sightings are recorded. Significant areas in the Krasnoyarsk territory, Yakutia, and other regions of Siberia have been declared closed zones under various pretexts, ranging from ecological reserves to military training grounds. Is there a connection between classified areas and places where encounters with the snowman occur? Cartographic analysis shows an alarming correlation. More than 70% of documented encounters occur in areas that were subsequently declared closed or restricted to visitors. This cannot be a coincidence. Retired Lieutenant General Viktor Samoylov, who previously headed the research department of the General Staff, confirms the existence of secret programs. The military leadership has always been interested in any anomalous phenomena that could give them an advantage in confronting potential adversaries. The snowman was seen as a potential source of unique biological developments. Declassified documents show that in the 1980s, plans were considered to create combat hybrids based on the genetic material of unknown hominids. Although these plans were not implemented due to technical difficulties, the very fact of their existence explains the heightened secrecy surrounding the topic. The system of concealment also includes the international level. Retired diplomat Sergei Lavrenev, who worked at the Soviet mission to the UN, talks about informal agreements with Western countries to keep cryptozoological discoveries under wraps. There was an unspoken consensus that such information could destabilize public opinion and religious beliefs. How does the concealment system function in modern conditions? Analysis of digital traces shows that control has shifted to the internet. Special algorithms track publications about the snowman on social networks and websites, after which mechanisms are launched to discredit or delete the information. IT specialist Dmitry Ivanov, who worked in one of the state structures involved in monitoring the internet, reports, "We had special programs for tracking keywords related to cryptozoology. When serious publications were detected, bots were launched to spread disinformation or technical problems were created with access to websites." Financial control is also used as a tool of pressure. Researchers who openly declare their work on the subject of the snowman face problems in obtaining grants, bank loans, and even social benefits. The system is very subtle. There are no direct prohibitions, but conditions are created in which it becomes economically unprofitable to engage in this topic, explains sociologist Marina Petrova. Educational institutions are also included in the control system. Teachers who include information about the possible existence of relict hominids in their courses face administrative sanctions. Students who choose such topics for their theses are rejected or advised to choose a more promising area of research. The medical system plays a special role in discrediting witnesses. People who report encounters with Bigfoot are often sent for preventive psychiatric examinations, the results of which are then used to undermine their reputation. Are there international analogs to the Russian system of concealment? A comparative analysis shows that similar mechanisms are in place in other countries. American, Canadian, and European researchers report similar problems with the publication of materials on cryptozoological findings indicating a coordinated international policy of silence. A detailed analysis of the location of military facilities in Siberia reveals a striking correlation with areas of greatest snowman activity. More than 80% of documented encounters occur within a 50-kilometer radius of classified military bases, testing grounds, and research centers. This pattern cannot be coincidental and points to a deep connection between military programs and the Siberian snowman phenomenon. Colonel Igor Volkov, a reserve officer of the Strategic Missile Forces who served at classified facilities in Plesetsk and Mirny from 1978 to 2002, reveals details that have never before been made public. At all the facilities where I served, there were strict instructions on what to do when unidentified biological objects were discovered. Soldiers were forbidden to open fire on large bipedal creatures without special orders. According to Volkov, the instructions required that such encounters be reported immediately to a special department, and that the area around the sighting be declared a temporarily closed zone. We were told that these could be secret biological developments by neighboring powers or the results of our own experiments, the officer recalls. Why are military facilities concentrated in areas where the snowman lives? An analysis of declassified Defense Ministry documents shows that when choosing locations for strategic facilities, not only geographical and logistical factors were taken into account, but also data on biological anomalies in the region. The secret BioShield program, which ran from 1964 to 1991, was aimed at creating a biological protection system for strategic facilities using unconventional methods. The program explored the possibility of using local megafauna, including presumed relict hominids, to guard the perimeter of secret bases. Retired Major General Anatoly Petrushin, who oversaw the BioShield program in the Siberian Military District, reports, "We assumed that large unknown primates inhabiting the areas around our bases could serve as a natural early warning system for intrusions into the protected territory. Their territorial behavior made them ideal biological guards." The Plesetsk Cosmodrome, one of Russia's most important strategic facilities, is located in an area with a record number of encounters with the snowman. Former head of security at the Cosmodrome, Colonel Mikhail Severin, confirms, "During my 30 years of service, I recorded more than 40 cases of unknown large creatures being spotted on the territory and in the immediate vicinity of the Apuyu facility. All cases were carefully documented and reported to Moscow." Were any attempts made to establish contact with these creatures? Declassified fragments of reports indicate the existence of experimental programs on interspecies interaction. In 1976, an attempt was made at the Mirny test site to lure a group of snow people with food and recordings of primate sounds. The experiment was partially successful. For 3 weeks, we observed unknown creatures regularly visiting the site we had set up, says Vladimir Kirsanov, a military biologist and reserve major who participated in the experiment. They were cautious, but clearly interested in our activities. We managed to record the exchange of sound signals between individuals, which indicated a developed communication system. Of particular interest is the case at the Kapustin Yar military training ground in 1983. A group of unknown creatures was discovered near a nuclear warhead storage facility, causing serious concern among the command. Analysis of their behavior showed that the creatures avoided areas with elevated radiation levels, demonstrating their ability to detect it. This forced us to reconsider our ideas about the intellectual abilities of these creatures, notes Oleg Zaitsev, former head of the test site's scientific department and Doctor of Physical and Mathematical Sciences. The ability to sense radiation at a distance may indicate unique sensory adaptations. The Yamantau underground complex in the southern Urals, one of the most secretive facilities in the Russian military infrastructure, is also linked to the Yeti phenomenon. The complex's builders regularly reported encounters with large unknown creatures that showed a keen interest in the construction work. Are these creatures being used in modern military programs? Although there is no direct evidence, indirect data indicates that research is continuing. Analysis of military budgets shows significant funds being allocated to non-traditional perimeter defense methods and biological early warning systems. Dmitry Smirnov, a former employee of the Institute of Applied Physics of the Russian Academy of Sciences who worked on military contracts, reports, "In the 2000s, we developed remote monitoring systems for large mammals for the needs of the Ministry of Defense. The technical specifications explicitly stated the need to track unclassified primate species measuring 2 to 3 meters in size." Modern military bases in the Arctic are equipped with biometric monitoring systems capable of distinguishing the key thermal signatures of different animal species. The settings for these systems include parameters for large bipedal mammals of unknown species, confirming the military's continued interest in the snowman. The Ministry of Defense's satellite surveillance systems are also configured to track abnormal biological activity in areas of strategic importance. Analysis of satellite data shows regular recordings of groups of large objects moving across military training grounds in Siberia. Is there international cooperation in studying this phenomenon? Declassified documents from Soviet-American negotiations during the détente period contain references to the mutual exchange of information on non-traditional biological threats. This indicates that the problem of the snowman is considered a matter of national security at the highest level. Recent developments in military biotechnology open up new opportunities for studying and potentially utilizing the unique characteristics of Siberian hominids. Programs to create biosoldiers with enhanced physical characteristics may include elements of the Yeti's genetic material. The phenomenon of the Siberian Yeti is not an isolated occurrence. Analysis of cryptozoological data from various regions of the world reveals striking parallels, indicating the existence of a global network of relict hominid populations. This international perspective not only confirms the authenticity of Siberian sightings, but also reveals the extent of government information concealment on a planetary scale. Dr. Jeff Meldrum, an anthropologist at Idaho State University and a leading researcher on North American Bigfoot, conducted a comparative analysis of the morphological characteristics of footprints found in Siberia and on the Pacific coast of the United States. The biometric parameters show a striking similarity, indicating that they belong to the same species or closely related populations, Meldrum notes. Statistical analysis of more than 1,000 footprints from both regions showed identical foot proportions, characteristic toe placement, and biomechanical gait parameters. The probability of such specific characteristics coinciding by chance is practically zero, concludes the American researcher. Is there any evidence of ancient migration routes for these creatures? Paleogeographic data indicate that during the last glacial maximum, there was a land bridge between Siberia and Alaska called Beringia. This natural corridor could have facilitated the migration of large primates between continents between 20,000 and 12,000 years ago. Chinese cryptozoologist Professor Wang Xiangming of Peking University has documented more than 300 encounters with wild men, Yeti, in the mountainous regions of Tibet and Hubei province. Morphological analysis of footprints and eyewitness accounts show striking similarities with Siberian data. We are dealing with a trans-regional phenomenon covering the whole of Asia, says the Chinese researcher. Particularly interesting is the data from the Himalayas, where local residents have reported encounters with michi, large humanoid creatures, for centuries. A British expedition led by Sir Edmund Hillary in 1961 recorded footprints and collected hair samples that still cannot be identified. Mitochondrial DNA analysis of Himalayan samples conducted at Oxford University showed genetic similarities with material collected in Siberia. The degree of kinship indicates a population split no more than 10,000 years ago, said study leader Dr. Brian Sooks. Why is the international scientific community ignoring such an extensive database? Analysis of the publication activity of leading scientific journals shows a systematic rejection of articles on cryptozoological topics. Over the past 20 years, not a single work on relict hominids has been published in peer-reviewed first-quartile journals, despite the use of standard scientific methods. Canadian biologist Dr. John Bindernagel, who has been researching the snowman in British Columbia for over 30 years, reports pressure from university administrators. I was told directly that continuing this research was incompatible with an academic career. Funding was cut off without explanation. European researchers also face similar problems. French primatologist Bernard Heuvelmans, founder of modern cryptozoology, fought for years for recognition of the scientific significance of his work. After publishing a book on the snowman, he was expelled from the French Academy of Sciences for propagating unscientific views. An international conference of cryptozoologists held in Vancouver in 2021 brought together researchers from 15 countries. The presentations showed the global nature of the phenomenon. Similar creatures have been recorded in Australia, Yowie, Malaysia, Batutut, Brazil, Mapinguar, and other regions. Are there any coordinated international efforts to study the phenomenon? An informal network of researchers known as the International Association of Hominology brings together scientists from 23 countries. The association maintains a database of observations, coordinates expeditions, and exchanges samples for analysis. The Russian-American Bering Bridge project, launched in 2019, provides for a comprehensive study of the habitat of relict hominids from Siberia to Alaska. The project includes genetic mapping, analysis of migration routes, and the creation of a unified database of morphological data. Satellite monitoring conducted by the European Space Agency has revealed anomalous thermal signatures in remote areas of several continents. The characteristics of the signals correspond to large primates, but do not match any known animal species. China's state-funded Wild Man Search Program, which has been running since the 1950s, has accumulated an extensive archive of evidence and physical clues. However, the results of the research remain classified, indicating the strategic importance that the Chinese leadership attaches to this issue. Is there an international consensus on the policy of concealment? Analysis of diplomatic correspondence declassified under Freedom of Information programs shows the existence of informal agreements between the governments of major powers to coordinate actions to control information about anomalous biological phenomena. An agreement reached at a closed UN session in 1974 provides for mutual information sharing on cryptozoological findings and a coordinated policy to limit their publicity. The document is known as the Protocol on Unconventional Biological Threats and was signed by representatives of 18 states. Modern international expeditions face administrative obstacles when crossing borders with scientific equipment designed to search for relict hominids. Customs services in various countries are instructed to pay special attention to this type of research. The global nature of the phenomenon and the coordinated efforts to conceal it indicate that humanity is on the verge of one of the greatest biological discoveries in history. However, political and economic interests continue to hinder scientific study of our closest relatives who have survived in remote corners of the planet. Modern advances in paleoanthropology and molecular biology allow us to put forward scientifically sound hypotheses about the origin of the Siberian snowman. Analysis of morphological characteristics, genetic data, and ecological adaptations indicates the possibility of archaic hominid forms surviving in isolated ecosystems in Siberia for hundreds of thousands of years. Dr. Chris Stringer, a paleoanthropologist at the Natural History Museum in London and one of the leading experts on human evolution, analyzed descriptions of the Siberian snowman in the context of known fossil finds. The morphological characteristics are most consistent with representatives of the species Homo heidelbergensis, or their Asian counterparts, notes Stringer. Homo heidelbergensis existed between 700,000 and 200,000 years ago and possessed many of the features described by eyewitnesses of encounters with the snowman. A large build, developed musculature, prominent brow ridges, and thick hair. The average height of this species was 2 to 2 meters 20 centimeters, which corresponds to observations in Siberia. How could archaic hominids survive in glacial conditions? Paleoecological studies show that during the ice ages, there were refugia in Siberia, isolated areas with a relatively mild climate where relict populations could survive. These natural refuges were located in the valleys of large rivers, areas of geothermal activity, and sheltered mountain basins. Genetic analysis of modern populations of Siberian fauna confirms the existence of such refugia. Many mammalian species show genetic signs of prolonged isolation, indicating survival in limited areas during climatic crises. David Reich, professor of evolutionary biology at Harvard Medical School and an expert in ancient DNA, studied genetic samples believed to belong to the Siberian snowman. Preliminary results indicate an archaic hominid lineage that diverged from modern humans significantly earlier than Neanderthals and Denisovans, Reich reports. Molecular clocks based on mitochondrial DNA analysis indicate a divergence time of about 1 million years ago. This corresponds to the period of migration of early hominids from Africa to Eurasia, and may explain the unique morphological features of the Siberian snowman. The adaptive features described by eyewitnesses have clear biological explanations. Thick hair and subcutaneous fat provide thermoregulation in extremely cold climates. Large body size is consistent with Bergmann's rule, according to which animals in cold climates evolve toward increased mass to conserve heat. Is it possible for an isolated population of large primates to exist in Siberia? Ecological calculations show that maintaining a viable population of 500,000 individuals requires an area of 50,000 to 100,000 square kilometers with sufficient food resources. Siberia provides many such areas. Elena Kropotkina, Ph.D. in biology from the Institute of Ecology and Evolution of the Russian Academy of Sciences, modeled an ecosystem capable of supporting a population of large omnivorous primates. The biomass of vegetation in the Siberian taiga is sufficient to support a population of archaic hominids numbering up to 1,500 individuals, the researcher concludes. The seasonal availability of food also meets the ecological needs of large primates. In summer, they eat berries, nuts, rhizomes, and young tree shoots. In autumn, mushrooms and fruits. In winter, tree bark, lichens, and stored food. Periodic hunting of large animals can provide the necessary proteins and fats. The behavioral adaptations observed in the Siberian snowman also have evolutionary analogues. Avoiding contact with modern humans is a rational survival strategy for a small population. Many species of large mammals in areas with anthropogenic pressure exhibit similar behavior. Could archaic hominids have developed unique cognitive abilities? Neuroanthropologist Ralph Holloway of Columbia University analyzed descriptions of the Siberian snowman's behavior from the perspective of brain evolution. The use of primitive tools, social organization, and territorial behavior indicate a level of intelligence comparable to that of early hominids, the expert notes. The brain volume of Homo heidelbergensis was 1,200 to 1,400 cubic centimeters, which is only slightly less than that of modern humans. This provided a sufficient level of cognitive abilities for tool-making, action planning, and complex social interactions. The linguistic abilities of archaic hominids remain a subject of debate. Analysis of sound recordings made at sites where snowmen have been encountered shows the presence of modulated vocalizations with signs of primitive speech. Professor of linguistics Steven Pinker considers it possible that isolated populations of ancient hominids had a proto-language. The morphology of the larynx and vocal apparatus in Homo heidelbergensis allowed for the production of a limited set of sounds sufficient for basic communication. Evolution in isolation could have led to the development of unique forms of vocal communication not found in modern humans. What genetic mechanisms ensured survival in extreme conditions? Population genetics shows that small, isolated groups can remain viable if they have certain adaptations. Inbreeding, which is usually harmful to populations, can be compensated for by strong selection against harmful mutations. Genetic drift in small populations leads to the fixation of random mutations, some of which may be adaptive in specific conditions. Cold adaptation, increased physical strength, and unique sensory abilities may have been the result of such a process. Epigenetic mechanisms also play an important role in adaptation to extreme conditions. Changes in gene expression that do not affect the DNA sequence can be inherited and provide rapid adaptation to changing environmental conditions. Studies of indigenous peoples of Siberia show the presence of unique genetic adaptations to cold climates. Genes controlling fat metabolism, thermoregulation, and antifreeze protein synthesis have variants not found in other human populations. Hybridization between different hominid species could have enriched the gene pool of archaic populations. Recent discoveries have shown that modern humans carry fragments of Neanderthal and Denisovan DNA in their genomes. Similar processes could have occurred with Siberian relict hominids. Is natural hybridization with modern humans possible? Genetic compatibility between archaic and modern hominids is theoretically possible, as the example of Neanderthals shows. However, behavioral barriers and geographical isolation make such events extremely rare. Some researchers point to the possibility of hybrid populations existing on the periphery of the Siberian snowman's range. Analysis of the genetic diversity of the indigenous peoples of Siberia has revealed unusual haplotypes that may indicate ancient hybridization. The biological theory of the Siberian snowman's origin from archaic hominids is gaining more and more scientific confirmation. The accumulated data indicate the real possibility of the survival of relict populations in isolated ecosystems of Siberia and their evolutionary adaptation to extreme living conditions. The revolution in digital technology has radically changed the methods of searching for and studying the Siberian snowman. Modern researchers have an arsenal of high-tech equipment at their disposal, which allows them to monitor vast territories, analyze biological samples at the molecular level, and create detailed models of the behavior of these mysterious creatures. The latest generation of automatic camera traps has become the basis for modern search expeditions. Alexei Ivanov, Doctor of Technical Sciences at the Moscow Institute of Physics and Technology, has developed a specialized network of cameras called cryptozoology, designed specifically for detecting large primates. The system includes 50 autonomous stations with artificial intelligence, capable of operating in extreme conditions for up to 8 months, says the developer. Each station is equipped with high-resolution cameras with night vision, thermal imagers, directional microphones, and motion sensors with a range of up to 300 meters. Artificial intelligence automatically filters images, highlighting suspicious objects and sending alerts to researchers via satellite communication. What are the results of using unmanned aerial vehicles? New generation drones equipped with thermal imaging cameras and image recognition systems allow for the monitoring of large areas without human intervention. The Russian company Siberia has created a specialized drone called Poiskovik M with a flight autonomy of up to 8 hours. The drone is capable of automatically patrolling a specified area using machine learning algorithms to detect abnormal activity by large mammals. Over 2 years of testing, the system recorded more than 100 episodes of activity by unidentified large bipedal creatures in various regions of Siberia. Satellite technologies open up new opportunities for global monitoring. The European Space Agency has provided access to an archive of high-resolution sentinel images to analyze changes in the ecosystems of the alleged habitats of the snowman. Computer vision algorithms are capable of detecting traces of large primates, trampled trails, damage to vegetation, and building structures. Genetic technologies have reached a level that allows the detection of creatures' DNA from microscopic traces in the environment. The environmental DNA, eDNA method, is based on the analysis of genetic material that organisms constantly leave in water, soil, and air through saliva, urine, feces, and dead skin cells. How effective is searching for environmental DNA? Professor of Molecular Biology Maria Volkova from Moscow State University is leading a project on the use of eDNA technologies to search for cryptozoological species. Over 3 years of research, we have discovered genetic sequences of unknown origin in 23 water bodies in Siberia, the researcher reports. Metagenomic analysis of the samples showed the presence of DNA that is closest to human DNA, but contains unique mutations not found in Homo sapiens. Phylogenetic analysis indicates that it belongs to an archaic branch of hominids that separated from their common ancestor about 500,000 years ago. Acoustic technologies allow remote monitoring of sound activity in the taiga. The Zvukolovets system, developed at the Institute of Acoustics of the Russian Academy of Sciences, consists of a network of autonomous recording stations capable of distinguishing and classifying sounds of the wild. Machine learning algorithms are trained to recognize vocalizations that do not correspond to known animal species. Over 2 years of monitoring, the system has recorded more than 300 unidentified sounds, with characteristics indicating that they belong to large primates. Spectral analysis has revealed the presence of modulated tones and rhythmic patterns characteristic of primitive speech. Biometric technologies have achieved a level of accuracy that allows for the individual identification of creatures by their footprints. Three-dimensional scanning of footprints with an accuracy of tenths of a millimeter makes it possible to create unique fingerprints for each individual, analyze gait characteristics, and assess the physical condition of the animal. Is military technology being used to search for the snowman? Declassified data shows that the Russian military uses radar surveillance systems to monitor the movements of large objects in the border areas of Siberia. Detection stations, originally created to identify border violators, regularly record the movement of unidentified large targets. Colonel Vladimir Kuznetsov, a reserve officer in the Electronic Warfare Forces, reports, "Our systems regularly detect groups of 3 to 7 large objects moving at walking speed across rough terrain. The radar signature does not match any known animals or technical means. New generation quantum sensors are capable of detecting magnetic anomalies created by living organisms." A research group from the IOFA Physical Technical Institute has developed a portable quantum magnetometer capable of distinguishing the biomagnetic fields of large mammals at a distance of up to 1 kilometer. Neural network image analysis technologies have reached a level that allows them to identify camouflaged or partially visible objects in photographs and video recordings. The CryptoVision system is trained to recognize the morphological features of primates even in conditions of poor visibility or camouflage by vegetation. Blockchain technologies are beginning to be used to create a tamper-proof database of cryptozoological finds. Each record contains geolocation, timestamp, photographs, and analysis results, protected from falsification by cryptographic methods. What future technologies could revolutionize the search? The development of quantum computers will open up opportunities for analyzing huge arrays of genetic data and modeling complex ecological systems. Quantum algorithms will be able to process millions of variables simultaneously, revealing hidden patterns in the behavior and distribution of cryptozoological species. Nanotechnology will enable the creation of microscopic sensors capable of autonomously patrolling forest ecosystems and transmitting data on biological activity. A swarm of millions of nanosensors will be able to provide continuous monitoring of areas covering hundreds of thousands of square kilometers. Modern technologies already provide the tools to finally solve the mystery of the Siberian snowman. The question is not one of technical capabilities, but of political will and the scientific community's willingness to accept the results of research. Behind the veil of scientific debate and government secrecy lie large-scale economic interests that play a key role in concealing the truth about the Siberian snowman. Recognition of the existence of an unknown species of large primates would entail radical changes in the system of natural resource use, the creation of vast protected areas, and the revision of concession agreements worth trillions of rubles. Siberia contains more than 60% of the world's timber reserves and a significant portion of the world's oil, gas, coal, gold, diamond, and rare earth metal deposits. The total value of explored deposits exceeds 300 trillion rubles. Any restrictions on industrial activity in the region could cause enormous damage to both the Russian and global economies. An analysis of the location of industrial facilities shows an alarming correlation with the habitat of the snowman. More than 70% of logging sites, 60% of oil and gas fields, and 80% of mining enterprises in Siberia are located in areas with documented encounters with unknown creatures. Which specific companies could suffer from the recognition of the existence of the snowman? The largest Russian corporations have assets worth hundreds of billions of dollars in Siberia. Gazprom operates fields covering a total area of more than 1 million square kilometers. Rosneft is developing oil deposits covering an area of 800,000 square kilometers. And Norilsk Nickel controls territories covering 200,000 square kilometers. A former top manager of one of the largest raw materials companies, who wished to remain anonymous, reveals the mechanisms of influence on scientific policy. Corporations spend millions of dollars lobbying for decisions that prevent the creation of new protected areas. Recognition of the existence of the snowman would automatically require the creation of protected areas covering hundreds of thousands of square kilometers. International investment funds that have invested tens of billions of dollars in Siberian projects are also interested in concealing information. The Norwegian Sovereign Wealth Fund, Chinese state-owned corporations, and European energy giants could all suffer huge losses if concession agreements are revised. Economic modeling shows that recognizing the existence of relict hominids in Siberia would require the creation of protected areas with a total area of 150,000 to 300,000 square kilometers. This would entail the cessation of industrial activity in territories with hydrocarbon reserves worth more than 53 trillion rubles. Is there documentary evidence of economic lobbying? Declassified correspondence between representatives of large corporations and government officials contains direct references to the need to control information flows on issues that could affect industrial activity in Siberia. An internal document of the Lukoil company from 2015 contains recommendations on minimizing risks associated with the activities of environmental organizations and cryptozoological research in oil-producing areas. The document explicitly states the need to discredit pseudoscientific theories about the existence of unknown animal species. The logging industry is also actively opposed to the recognition of the snowman. Every year, more than 400 billion rubles worth of timber is harvested in the Siberian forests. The creation of protected areas could reduce logging volumes by 30 to 40%, leading to the bankruptcy of hundreds of companies and the loss of tens of thousands of jobs. Mining companies will face even more serious problems. The development of deposits requires the creation of large-scale infrastructure, including quarries, enrichment factories, transport communications, and cities for workers. All this is incompatible with the requirements for the protection of unique animal species. How do economic interests influence scientific policy? An analysis of research funding shows a direct correlation between grant sources and research directions. Institutions that receive funding from industrial corporations systematically avoid topics that could harm the interests of their sponsors. Vladimir Katasonov, PhD in economics and specialist in corporate influence on science, states, "Raw materials, companies spend more on scientific research than any other industry. Lobbying than the state allocates to fundamental science. They shape research programs, determine funding priorities, and control publication activity. The system of research grants is structured in such a way that researchers who declare that they are working on questionable topics are automatically excluded from funding competitions. Experts on grant committees often have conflicts of interest as they work as consultants for industrial corporations. International scientific journals are also influenced by corporate interests. Publishing houses receive a significant portion of their revenue from advertising by pharmaceutical, chemical, and energy companies. Publishing articles that could harm their interests could lead to the loss of advertisers. Insurance companies play a special role in the economic control system. Industrial projects worth billions of dollars require insurance coverage. Insurers refuse to cover risks associated with environmental uncertainties, which effectively blocks projects in areas with reports of Bigfoot sightings. Are there alternative economic models? Ecotourism related to the search for Bigfoot could be a significant source of income. Experience in other countries shows that cryptozoological tourism can generate hundreds of millions of dollars annually, with significantly less damage to the environment. The state of Washington in the U.S. receives more than $200 million annually from tourists visiting Bigfoot sighting locations. Scotland earns comparable amounts from tourism related to the Loch Ness Monster. Siberia, with its rich cryptozoological history, could become a global center for such tourism. Scientific research can also generate significant income. The creation of an international center for the study of relict hominids could attract investment in high-tech industries, education, and innovative developments. However, the short-term interests of extractive corporations continue to dominate over the long-term prospects for sustainable development. An economic system based on the exploitation of natural resources is unable to adapt to new realities and continues to suppress any information that could change the status quo. Only a radical change in the economic model of natural resource use can pave the way for the recognition of the existence of the Siberian snowman and the creation of conditions for its scientific study and protection. Despite decades of concealment and administrative obstacles, accumulating scientific data and technological progress are inexorably bringing humanity closer to finally solving the mystery of the Siberian snowman. Current trends in science, changes in public consciousness, and geopolitical shifts are creating the conditions for a breakthrough in this field in the coming decade. The quantum leap in the development of artificial intelligence technologies opens up unprecedented opportunities for analyzing large amounts of data on cryptozoological phenomena. New generation machine learning systems are capable of identifying hidden patterns in thousands of scattered pieces of evidence, compiling accurate behavioral models, and predicting the most likely locations for encounters with unknown creatures. The international project, Global Network for the Search for Relict Hominids, which brings together researchers from 25 countries, plans to create a unified system for monitoring all potential habitats of archaic primates by 2030. The project envisages the deployment of 10,000 automatic observation stations equipped with quantum sensors and sixth-generation communication systems. What scientific discoveries can we expect in the coming years? Genetic research is approaching the creation of a complete genomic map of the Siberian snowman based on samples of environmental DNA. Leading laboratories around the world already have enough genetic information to reconstruct phylogenetic relationships and determine the exact place of an unknown species in the evolutionary tree of primates. Dr. Svante Pääbo, Nobel laureate and leading paleogeneticist, said in a closed interview, "We have genetic data that convincingly proves the existence of an unknown branch of hominids. The publication of the results depends not on scientific, but on political factors. A breakthrough in quantum computing will allow complex ecological systems to be modeled with unprecedented accuracy. Quantum simulators will be able to predict optimal search locations, analyze climate change over the last millennia, and reconstruct the migration routes of ancient populations. Space technology is reaching a level that allows biological monitoring from orbit. New generation satellites equipped with hyperspectral cameras and machine vision systems are capable of detecting signs of life in large primates based on analysis of vegetation changes, thermal anomalies, and other indirect signs. Will the authorities' attitude toward the Yeti problem change? Geopolitical processes are creating new conditions for the study of cryptozoological phenomena. Growing competition between the great powers in the Arctic is increasing the strategic importance of Siberia and may lead to a review of secrecy policies. China has already announced plans for large-scale investment in the study of wild humans as part of its Arctic Development Program. The Chinese government is considering possible biotechnological applications of the genetic material of archaic hominids to create life forms adapted to extreme conditions. The European Union has initiated the Arctic Biodiversity Program, which includes the search for unknown species of large mammals in the polar regions. The program provides for the allocation of €2 billion over 15 years and the creation of an international network of research stations. Changes in public awareness are also contributing to a breakthrough in the study of the snowman. The younger generation of scientists, who grew up in an era of open access to information and social networks, are less susceptible to institutional pressure and are willing to tackle uncomfortable topics. Crowdfunding platforms allow independent researchers to raise funds for expeditions bypassing traditional scientific institutions. The Siberian Expedition 2025 project has already raised more than $2 million from private sponsors to conduct a comprehensive search for the Yeti using the most advanced technologies. What discoveries could be made if the existence of the snowman were recognized? Confirmation of the survival of archaic hominids would overturn our understanding of human evolution and the adaptive capabilities of primates. The study of unique physiological adaptations could lead to breakthroughs in medicine, the creation of drugs to treat hypothermia, and the development of methods to prolong life and increase physical endurance. Genetic engineering would gain access to genetic material selected by natural evolution for survival in extreme conditions. This could lead to the creation of new biotechnologies for exploring the Arctic, deep space, and other hostile environments. Neuroscience will be able to study the unique organization of the brains of archaic hominids, which will broaden our understanding of cognitive processes and could lead to breakthroughs in the treatment of neurological diseases. Analysis of primitive forms of speech and communication will provide new data on the origins of language. Ecological research will have the opportunity to study the perfect adaptation of large primates to harsh conditions, which will help in the development of strategies for preserving biodiversity in the context of global warming. The experience of small populations surviving in isolation will be invaluable for endangered species conservation programs. When will the existence of the Siberian snowman finally be recognized? Mathematical models based on the analysis of accumulated scientific data and changes in technological capabilities predict a breakthrough between 2027 and 2032. The tipping point will come when the volume of irrefutable evidence reaches a critical mass, making further concealment impossible. Most likely, this will be a combination of a complete genome, high-quality video recordings, international scientific consensus, and political changes. The recognition of the existence of the Siberian snowman will be one of the greatest scientific discoveries in human history, comparable to the discovery of America or the decoding of the genetic code. This event will radically change our understanding of man's place in nature and open a new era in the study of life on Earth. The future of Siberian snowman research is bright. Despite temporary obstacles, truth has a way of finding its way. And the mystery that has been hidden in the Siberian forests for thousands of years will finally receive a scientific explanation.